Hi everyone. Today I'm going to talk to you about the Turn and Talk reading strategy, and I'm going to walk you through steps to implement this in your classroom and show you how I've kind of used it and hopefully give you some ideas or some references that are going to help you use it in your classroom. To start with, what is Turn and Talk? And it's exactly what it says it is. You are turning and talking to a classmate about a question or a problem that your teacher has posed to you in order to get a better understanding of it and in order to work your way through the process of solving that or answering that question. Sometimes this is referred to as a think, pair, share, where students are given time to think, then they're able to pair with one another and work their way through that problem together and then share out as a whole class. This is a support strategy that provides students scaffolded interactions to formulate ideas and share their thinking with another student. Students will physically turn to a classmate. I refer to them as shoulder partners. I have other colleagues that call them elbow partners or AB partners or clock partners, whatever suits your needs. And they will discuss a text, work out a problem, answer a question, brainstorm ideas for writing, create a list, or any other numerous tasks that we can give them. And they'll work their way through those together. And then after the class comes back together, the teacher may engage in whole group discussions. I don't engage in whole group discussions after every single turn and talk I give, but when I do, I use a random student selector where I will randomly choose a student to either tell me their thinking or explain the thinking of their partner. So why is turn and talk effective? Why is this something that I should use in my class? Well, according to Daniels and Zimmelman, turn and talk allows students to stop and think about a question or a challenging problem. It allows them to draw on social interaction to advance their learning. So kind of a two heads are better than one type thing where they are able to walk their way through a process with another classmate. It prevents students from drifting and losing focus. It increases the number of students who participate in class, and it gives every student the opportunity to process their own thinking. So we have all been in that situation where we will ask a whole class a question, and then we have those 2 or 3 students who are always raising their hands or always want to answer questions. And it's easy for us to call on them because we know that they're going to have the right answer, and we're just assuming that everybody in the class is going to get that information because that student said the correct answer. With a turn and talk, that kind of eliminates that because now it requires every student to work their way through a question or a task that we give them and work their way through their own thinking and talk their own thinking out with a partner. When should you use turn and talk? In the Daniels and Zimmelman text, it states that turn and talk should be used during and or after reading, and it could be used 5 or 8 times per class period. I would also agree that this could be used prior to reading of a text, and I'll tell you how in just a second. So suggestions for when to use turn and talk. It is a good thing to use it when students need to pick a side. So if you have 2 sides to a debate, use a turn and talk because they can choose their side and give the facts why they choose their side. A new idea is still unclear and students can benefit from partner discussion. Activating prior knowledge. And here's the piece where I think that turn and talk can be used before you do a reading. I use this in one of my biology classes where we were talking about the characteristics of living things. And I had students do a turn and talk with their shoulder partner prior to reading through the text about characteristics of living things to see what they came up with. And then we were able to go back and kind of compare their before list and their after lists. When learning new vocabulary, you can use a turn and talk, as simple as to just say the word out loud if it's a challenging word for students to pronunciate. And then to solve complex problems, I use a turn and talk in math a lot, where I'll give the students the process or the question that I want them to go through, and then I'll have them turn to their shoulder partner and work their way through the first 2 steps, and then we'll come back and discuss and then go on further from there. Now, how you set this up in your classroom, it's not quite as simple as saying, oh, turn to the person next to you and answer this question. There's couple of things that you want to look at before you implement the strategy with your class. First is to determine strategic partners. Second is to set academic and behavioral goals. And then third is to plan rigorous thinking. And I'm going to go through these 3 steps here and give you a little bit more information on them. So first, determining strategic partners. The pairing at first shouldn't be random. So again, it shouldn't be, oh, turn to the person next to you and discuss, because you may have the person sitting next to your brightest student in class, maybe the worst student in class, and their levels are too far apart where they're not going to be able to talk academically with one another. So it's important that students are no more than one level away from one another so they can have that meaningful and purposeful talk as they're going through these tasks together. Second, setting academic and behavioral goals. So this strategy needs to be modeled for students, just like anything else that we do, before they actually do it. So that way they know what they're supposed to do when they actually turn to their partner or their shoulder partner or whatever you may call it, how they're supposed to talk with one another, and then what they're supposed to do when they're finished. Okay. An anchor chart can serve as a good reminder to let students know what's expected of them as they are going through a turn and talk. And the anchor chart could include the following: face one another, make eye contact, take turns, ask one another questions, stay focused on the topic, listen to one another. And I have included a few examples of anchor charts in this presentation that I will show you at the end. Some students may need to have conversation starters to assist them. So I think this because, or I agree with this side of the debate because, anything that can get them speaking the content, it may be helpful for them. And then plan rigorous thinking tasks. So make the turn and talk a strategy with a purpose. So not just turn and talk and tell me the definition of this vocabulary word. Actually make it something where they have to think and they have to work their way through a process with one another in order to reach a solution. The topics that students are asked to explain should allow them to think critically, but not be so difficult that they shut down or don't attempt them. And then turn and talk should build up to the ultimate goal of the lesson. So kind of little stepping stones as we go till we reach our objective for the day. And then what should you do as the teacher while turn and talks are going on? Well, it's very easy to, we don't want to stay stationary. And we don't want to, get ready for the next class coming in or grade a paper or any of those things. You want to circulate throughout the room and listen to students' conversations. Offer help if they ask for it, but make sure they're the ones doing the work. Remember that the turn and talk strategy is for them to work their way through the process. Don't lose track of time, and it's very easy to do because you may stop at a group and they have a very good conversation going back and forth and you want to listen to their thinking, but you may have a group in the corner who's done in 30 seconds and you don't want them to get off topic. And then bring the class back together and randomly call on a student or two to offer their explanation or solution. The turn and talk strategy should really last no longer than 2 minutes. So they're quick little things that we can do throughout the events of our lessons in order to help students to learn and understand what it is we're talking about. And then I wanted to give you scenarios that this could go wrong. Okay, so according to West and Cameron, these are 4 pitfalls that can happen when first implementing turn and talk. The first one, again, giving students too much time to talk. If we give them 5 minutes to answer something that should take 30 seconds, then we're going to have students that are off topic and messing around or playing around or distracting to those that are on topic. Asking students to talk about nothing. Again, we should have a clear objective for them in their turn and talk, a clear process that they have to go through in order to reach a solution. Not making your expectations clear. So again, modeling this is so important when you start. You can start by modeling it with yourself and a student and asking kids You know, what did you see was as we did this turn and talk, and what should you be doing as you are participating in a turn and talk? And then getting sucked into individual conversations and losing track of time. So I think I mentioned that on the previous slide there. But it is really easy to do. We kind of want to leave it where students want to talk more about it than with them having too much extra time in there. I have given you the resources that I've used for this presentation. The Turn and Talk, One Powerful Practice, So Many Uses is a really good article by Antonia Cameron and Lucy West that talks through this as well. I have given you 2 videos to watch. This one will go through kind of what I said in the presentation as to how you can implement this and things to watch out for. And these are 3 anchor charts that you may look at and say, oh, this might be something I want to add to my classroom. I recommend creating the anchor charts together with your students so that way they feel as though they have a voice in it to show this strategy. And then this last video, and I apologize that I couldn't get it to load exactly onto Prezi, but this is an actual example of turn and talk that is occurring in a middle school science class. Please feel free to ask any questions. I have enjoyed this class immensely, and thank you for your time.